Hello, this is Doug, and for the next hour, I'll be reading from the July 29th, 2026 issue of the Toronto Star on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The front page includes a Star exclusive where the former minister will join the mayoral race. Chris Alexander's entry could upend the contest between Chow and Bradford. Former federal Conservative cabinet minister Chris Alexander said he will register Wednesday to run to become Toronto mayor in what would be a surprise foray into city politics and one that has potential to upend this fall's municipal race. Alexander, who served as MP for Ajax Pickering more than a decade ago and was immigration minister under Prime Minister Stephen Harper, has never held office at the city level, but in an exclusive interview with the Star, he said he was launching a campaign for Toronto's October 26 election because he believes that residents feel the city is adrift under Mayor Olivia Chow. The mayor shows up for things and is respected for that. People see her being is in their corner, and that's great. But I don't think people see a hand on the tiller in this current configuration we have at City Council, and they want Toronto to get the sense of direction back, he said. He cited concerns about transit not improving fast enough and worries over public safety, even as he acknowledged crime is down by some measures. Alexander, 57, was elected MP in 2011 and served as Minister of Citizenship and Immigration from 2013 to 2015. Before entering politics, he worked in foreign service and was Canada's ambassador to Afghanistan. After years abroad and in Ajax, he moved back to Toronto in 2022 and now lives near Summerhill with his 3 children and his wife, Hedvig Christine Alexander, a former captain in the Danish army whom he met in Afghanistan. For many Torontonians, Alexander is best remembered for championing the Conservatives' now infamous proposal for a barbaric cultural practices hotline during the 2015 federal election. At the time, Alexander suggested the proposal would help protect women and girls from forced marriages and preserve our values. The proposal came as the Tories pushed policies denounced by critics and as unfairly targeting Muslims and was widely viewed as fanning intolerance. Asked how he would reconcile his backing of the hotline idea with wanting to be mayor of one of the most diverse cities in the world, Alexander said he has expressed regret for that mistake. He has previously blamed the proposal for costing the Conservatives the 2015 election. He lost his own seat in the race. Our campaign went in the wrong direction on that issue at that time. It didn't land the way it was intended to, he said, but he argued he should be judged by his overall record, which he said included working to protect women's rights in Afghanistan and elsewhere, and resettling refugees while he was minister. More recently, Alexander was involved in a controversy on Parliament Hill when he alleged at a parliamentary committee in 2024 that a veteran Ottawa journalist had acted as a Russian agent. The reporter denied the allegations, which he said were false, and put his family in danger. Alexander stood by his comments. The 2 candidates currently considered frontrunners in the mayor's race, Chow and Beaches, East York Coon, Brad Bradford, are both already council members. Alexander framed for his experience outside of City Hall as an asset. I spent my life working on issues that were by definition complex challenges, such as immigration policy, the conflict in Afghanistan, and while serving at the Canadian Embassy in Moscow, dealing with Vladimir Putin, he said. He has yet to develop a full platform, but called Chow's successive property tax increases, 9.5%, 6.9%, and 2.2% in her 3 years in office, plenty for the time being. What we need is a sense of fiscal responsibility in council, he said. He called the federal government's decision last week to block Premier Doug Ford's proposed expansion of Billy Bishop Airport unsurprising given local opposition, but said it doesn't resolve the airport's future. He said the mayor and council should work to build a consensus that satisfies people concerned with Billy Bishop's impact on the waterfront and those who value it as an economic asset. Alexander also said he's passionate about ensuring Toronto seizes the opportunity to be a global hub for financial services, the mining sector, and technology companies. Alexander's candidacy has the potential to dramatically change the dynamic of what had been shaping up to be a two-person race between Chow, herself a former Democrat MP, and Bradford, her more conservative rival. Conventional wisdom in Toronto politics is that the center-right's best shot of electing a mayor is to rally around a single candidate. If there is more than one centrist or conservative contender, they risk splitting the vote and giving a strong progressive a chance to win. That pattern played out in the 2023 mayoral by-election when Chow bested a crowded field and won with 37% of the vote. For the 3 years since then, Bradford has been working to position himself as the best and only center-right candidate to take on Chow at the expense of other potential contenders. While Alexander would be a new face at City Hall, he would likely enter the race with the profile and political connections necessary to mount a serious campaign that would fish from the same pool of voters as Bradford. Alexander dismissed any concerns that his mayoral run risked making Chow's re-election more likely, saying the most vocal people making that argument are those who support the Beaches East York councillor, and it should be up to the voters to decide who's best qualified. And despite his history with the Conservative Party, he ran for federal leadership in 2017, he said. He wouldn't cast himself as inhabiting one part of the political spectrum. I don't think it's about right and left. I think it's about who is the right person for the job, he said. As of Tuesday afternoon, 32 candidates had signed up to run for mayor. Nominations close August 21st. In another front page article, the airport plan isn't dead, the province says. The minister lambasts Ottawa for bowing to fringe group opposed to expansion. Blasting the federal government for listening to a small fringe group in Toronto, Provincial Transportation Minister Prabmeet Sarkaria insists the Billy Bishop extension is not dead. Days after Ottawa announced that changes to the island airport would be restricted to planned safety improvements and not extend the runway to allow commuter jets, Sarkaria said Queen's Park wouldn't give up. The minister said Tuesday the province was disappointed with the statement that was released by the federal government, effectively kiboshing plans for a jet-accommodating runway extension. We've seen the federal government here listen to small fringe group in Toronto, but we, as a province, will continue to push forward on modernization of this airport because it's the right thing to do and it makes sense, he said Tuesday at an unrelated announcement in St. Thomas, Ontario. Prime Minister Mark Carney's government scuttled Premier Doug Ford's dream of an expanded Billy Bishop Toronto City Airport late Friday within hours of receiving results of an online public consultation that found that 87% of the 87,000 respondents were opposed to the idea. The federal Liberals acted swiftly before Carney called 3 key by-elections on Sunday for August 31st, including the lakefront constituency of Beaches, East York. Liberal MPs, who represent 23 of Toronto's 24 federal ridings, have been taking heat for the airport push for months, thanks to an organized campaign by the opponents of the scheme, like Environmental Defense, which charged that the expansion for jets at the airport would bring noise pollution and traffic gridlock and wipe out thousands of new homes our city desperately needs. No officials from Ottawa have commented publicly since Friday's announcement, with spokespeople for Federal Transport Minister Steve McKinnon on Tuesday deferring to his 4-day-old statement. The Toronto Port Authority, meanwhile, declined to weigh in when asked if it was still conducting an expansion feasibility study despite the Liberals' retreat. Federal sources, speaking confidently and confidentially to discuss internal deliberations, have told the Star a scaled-back Billy Bishop expansion could still be possible if it addresses Torontonians' concerns and complements plans to expand Toronto Pearson International Airport at the Alto High-Speed Rail project. That's a glimmer of hope from Carney's Liberals that Ford's progressive Conservatives are clinging to. As members of the tripartite agreement, Premier Ford and our government will continue to work towards a plan that is published by the Toronto Port Authority that supports the modernization of Billy Bishop, said Sarkaria. We support that project because it's a project that makes sense. Whether you're talking about air travelers across the province, we heard from communities in the north and hospital CEOs that this airport would create greater connectivity for those individuals, said the minister. We heard from mayors in Eastern Ontario about how this project will support their transportation needs as well. Federal sources, speaking confidentially to discuss internal deliberations, have told the Star a scaled-back Billy Bishop expansion could still be possible if it addresses Torontonians' concerns and complements plans to expand Toronto Pearson International Airport and the Alta High-Speed Rail project. That's a glimmer of hope from Carney's Liberals that Ford's progressive Conservatives are clinging to. As members of the tripartite agreement, Premier Ford and our government will continue to work towards a plan that is published by the Toronto Port Authority that supports the modernization of Billy Bishop, said Sarkaria. We support that project because it's a project that makes sense. Whether you're talking about air travelers across the province, we heard from communities in the north and hospital CEOs that this airport would create greater connectivity for those individuals, said the minister. We heard from mayors in Eastern Ontario about how this project will support their transportation needs as well. With Toronto City Council set to debate a motion Wednesday urging the province to scrap Sarkaria's Bill 110, the Building Billy Bishop Airport Act, the minister was firm. No, we have no intention to repeal. As I said, we fully support the modernization of this plan that is going to be put forward by the Toronto Port Authority, he said, noting the federal agency which owns and operates Billy Bishop has been pushing for its expansion. Sarkaria's bill, which passed the legislature in the spring, enabled the province to seize ownership of the city-owned lands at Billy Bishop in exchange for fair compensation and usurp the municipality's role in the tripartite agreement overseeing the airport. Mayor Olivia Chow and City Council opposed what she has dubbed a land grant by Ford. At Queen's Park, NDP leader Merritt Stiles, who, like the Liberals and Greens, voted against Bill 110, said, "It was always clear that this was another half-baked plan from Doug Ford. This Premier's obsession with Toronto has gone on long enough." Minister Sarkaria, referring to the people who oppose this project as a fringe group, is a pathetic insult to the tens of thousands of people who fought back against this ridiculous project, said Stiles. Doug Ford didn't get his way, and his ministers are lashing out at the constituents for using their democratic rights. We don't need jets in the middle of Toronto. Bill 110 is still law, and Doug Ford has given himself the power to do whatever he wants with Little Norway Park in the Toronto Islands. It's time for the Premier to end this land grab, kill Bill 110, and return these lands to the city of Toronto. You are listening to a reading of articles and features from the Toronto Star on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. An online casino without an Ontario license has been shuttered. A sex-themed gambling website that was open to Ontario customers in apparent violation of provincial rules has shut down after an investigation by the Star and its international media partners. The online casino, Only Spins, had no Ontario license but allowed customers in the province to place bets in order to earn explicit photos and videos. In mid-July, weeks after the investigation highlighted the site, a notice appeared on its homepage telling players it is no longer accessible. The cross-border investigation, led by Investigate Europe, in collaboration with news outlets in 15 other countries, found Only Spins was among a vast network of online casino sites linked to gambling company SoftBet2 and its associated entities. Many had been registered offshore and blacklisted by European regulators for operating without local licenses. Some of these sites also target Canadians, despite having no authorization to operate in any province or territory. In 2022, Ontario launched a regulated marketplace that required a license for entry. Licensing was a key component to protect bettors, the government said. Unlicensed, gray market betting sites often expose consumers to greater risk of harm with practices that can exacerbate addiction or facilitate criminal activity like money laundering and max fishing. A soft-to-bet site, TunyBet, got one of those licenses, but the Star had found more than 20 other soft-to-bet sites linked, including Only Spins, that were open to customers in the province, but not licensed to do so. The parent company did not respond to questions from the Star and its partners for this story, but has previously denied wrongdoing, saying that the investigation had an incorrect and misleading interpretation of its business. Soft2Bet also said that it responsibly operates according to regulations. The shutdown of Only Spins comes as regulators in Ireland said they have launched a probe into more than 100 websites linked to Soft2Bet. 6 gambling websites run by the company hold licenses to operate in Ireland, while other Soft2Bet linked sites that are unlicensed in the country also target gamblers there, according to analysts by Irish Times and Investigate Europe. We are investigating each of these websites with a view to enforcement action, the Gambulatory Regulatory Authority of Ireland said in a statement. We will use every tool at our disposal to combat and disrupt illegal activity. The Irish probe is the second to be announced in recent weeks. Last month, after the Star sent its initial findings to the Alcohol and Gaming Commission of Ontario for comment, the regulator said it was opening an investigation. The Commission declined to comment on the status of its investigation, which it said is ongoing. Only Spins did not verify users' ages and had been blacklisted by regulators in Poland, Italy, and Greece. This spring, a Star reporter easily set up an account and placed bets on the site using a fake name and Toronto address. It Only Spins and 2 other Soft2Bet linked online casinos without other licenses. Customer support told the Star reporter, who was posing as a gambling addict, that they'd lose their winnings if they deactivated their accounts. The practice appeared to violate Ontario guidelines meant to protect vulnerable bettors. The site also allowed users to set their language to Canadian English and transact in Canadian dollars. It did not verify the reporter's identity, meaning it was open to underage players and gambling addicts who have self-excluded from the province's registered online and in-person casinos. Soft2Bet's licensed TunyBet brand launched in Ontario in 2024, 2 years after the province rolled out its regulated online gambling market. It soon boasted a library of thousands of games and recorded steady growth, landing splashy partnerships with the Canadian Football League and the Ottawa Senators that would raise its profile among sports bettors. More deals with sports teams and leagues followed as the company eyed expansion to Alberta. TunyBet has since registered to operate in that province's new regulated online gambling system, but has not yet opened to users in the province. Another soft-to-bet link betting site is also shutting down. In an email to users this month, the Harry Potter theme Betworts said it would close on July 31st, though it may be relaunched later under the new ownership of a company in Bulgaria. The company mentioned in the email does not appear to be listed in Bulgaria's corporate registry. SoftBet did not answer questions about the transfer. A Blue Jays top draft pick flew under the radar until this year, but says he can move quickly. Starting pitchers typically have a lot of innings under their belt before they manage to get on the radar of a major league team. Whether it's through travel ball, high school, college, or a combination of all three, just about every arm has been at least somewhat abused prior to getting drafted. That isn't the case with recent Blue Jays first-round pick Cole Carlin. The 21-year-old left-hander went undrafted out of high school before spending his first 2 seasons at Arizona State pitching out of the bullpen. It wasn't until earlier that Carlin got an opportunity to start. Once he did, the 6'5", 230-pounder didn't waste any time establishing himself as one of the top collegiate arms in the United States. I think the benefit is that his delayed development was not as widely known as you would expect it to be, Scott Boras, Carlton's agent, told the Toronto media Tuesday. What we saw in his junior year was something that, frankly, few, if any, in the draft had those abilities. It's a feather in Toronto's cap, no doubt. Carlin's freshman year at Arizona State was trial by fire as he allowed 34 runs over 40 2/3 innings, which he shelved any immediate plans to move him into the rotation. Carlin instead returned to the bullpen for his sophomore year and bounced back with a 3.33 ERA and 86 strikeouts in 54 innings. That was enough for Carlin to move into a starting role as a junior, and his career took off soon after. The former Alaska Baseball League Player of the Year went 5-2 with a 3.87 ERA and 133 strikeouts in a career-high 83 2/3 innings. Carlin's biggest strengths are an upper 90s fastball and wipeout slider. The Jays view his changeup more favorably than other organizations, and there's a sweeping curveball in his mix too. The biggest thing was making sure my body was ready to go and making physical adjustments, Carlin said, of becoming a starter. My identity as a pitcher, and I didn't change who I was. I didn't change any of my stuff. I was still going to be the same guy every time I touched the mound, but the role changed, the preparation changed, and I was able to grow into a new role. Aggressive approach with their collegiate arms, and they might soon do the same with Carlin. Right-hander Trey Savage went through all levels of the minors before debuting just 1 year after he was drafted. Former ace Alek Manoah arrived in Toronto 2 years after getting picked, even though one of those minor league seasons was canceled because of the pandemic. Carlin should follow suit, but his rise likely won't start until next year because he's already reached a career high in innings. The Jays are content for now with him getting adjusted to life as a professional at their player development complex in Florida. It feels good knowing the work I put in to get to this point has really paid off, Carlin said. I know I still have a lot of growth to do, but I'm aware of myself and I have the confidence, the abilities, and to go out and pitch at any given moment whenever the team needs me. The Jays have several promising arms on the rise. While Rusevich made the leap, high upside options like Nolan Perry, Johnny King, and Greg Stanifer offered depth behind him, even with Ricky Tiedemann's long-term health still up in the air. The harsh reality is, some of those names will never turn into much of anything. Pitching prospects are notoriously difficult to project, which is why it makes sense to have as many lottery tickets as possible in the hopes of striking it rich. This season was just the latest example of how crucial pitching depth really is. The Jays arrived in spring training with too many starters and too few spots. Then multiple players went down with injuries, and the team had to start dipping into the minors just days into the regular season. Carlin believes it won't be long before he offers a helping hand. I would say that I'm relentless, Carlin said. I'm going to compete. I'm going to get 2 strikes as soon as I can and try to get as many outs as possible. I really just love to go out there and go right after guys with my stuff. If the talent matches the confidence, the Jays won't mind waiting out his transition in Florida. For an unperforming franchise that has no choice but to shift its attention to the future, a low-mileage power lefty with a pair of October caliber pitches is more of a smart wager than a risky gamble. WestJet and the flight attendants are still in talk as the deadline nears on a potential strike. With just days to go until 4,400 WestJet flight attendants could go on strike, both sides are still at the bargaining table. Air industry analysts and labor experts say a strike is unlikely, but still possible. In an emailed statement Tuesday afternoon, the head of the union representing flight attendants said the country's second biggest airline still needs to move closer to the union's demands for higher wages, including ground pay for non-flight time. We want to continue bargaining, but it's up to WestJet to make the meaningful progress needed to avoid a strike. Our members don't want to go on strike, but we are prepared to if necessary, said Alia Hussein, president of the Canadian Union of Public Employees Local 8125. Flight attendants should be paid for all the work they do, and we can no longer remain among the lowest paid in Canada. A CUPE spokesperson said Tuesday that the two sides were still at the table. In an email, the airline said it was still hopeful a deal can be reached to avert a strike before Sunday's 2:01 a.m. Eastern deadline. WestJet remains actively engaged in negotiations and is fully prepared to make meaningful improvements that work for cabin crew members while balancing the future sustainability of WestJet. We are optimistic we can arrive at an agreement, the company said. Last month, CUPE members voted 99.4% in favor of a strike. Despite the strike vote, the union still needs to give the company 72 hours notice of any intended strike action. Even though a gap still exists between the two sides, air industry analysts and labor experts say a strike isn't likely to actually happen, and the deal Air Canada reached with its own flight attendants last year will serve as a template for the WestJet deal. With airlines across the continent seeing strong revenue and fewer empty seats this summer, WestJet doesn't likely want to disrupt the good times, argued John Gradick, head of the aviation management program at McGill University. I think they're probably looking at this as, let's keep our head down and not rock the boat. Let's reap the benefits of the summer while making money and fares are high, said Gradick. I don't think the shareholders would appreciate a strike. Air Canada's flight attendants agreed to a 4-year deal last summer with wage agreements of increases of 2% each year. The deal also included an agreement to partly pay them for the first hour of time spent waiting on the ground. That ground pay will see them get a 50% of their usual hourly wage in the first year, with yearly increases bringing it to 80% by the 4th year. To avoid a PR nightmare and to avoid the costs associated with a work stoppage, WestJet is likely looking to settle with CUPE, said Stephen Tufts, a labor studies professor at York University. I think there's a good chance they'll settle before a work action, said Tufts. Still, he warned the airline could be counting on the federal government to issue back-to-work legislation, even preemptively. That could lead the airline to take a sterner line than it other would be tempted to, Tufts argued. They could be saying, let's take a free roll and we could keep costs down, said Tufts. They also know the government probably has their backs. But back-to-work legislation would also certainly include binding arbitration, and with Air Canada's deal with its own flight attendants as an example, It would be hard for WestJet to maintain any hard line, argued Barry Prentice, director of the University of Manitoba's Transportation Institute. If it goes to arbitration and the Air Canada deal's there, I don't think an arbitrator would be impressed if the ground pay is unmanageable, said Prentice. The union is keen on expanding ground pay to WestJet, arguing that flight attendants work up to 35 unpaid hours per month, a claim hotly disputed by the airline. You are listening to a reading of articles and features from the Toronto Star on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. 9 are facing charges in an alleged human trafficking ring. Halton police say they've dismantled the largest human trafficking ring in the force's history after a strong and brave woman came forward last fall and said she was being sold for sex. 5 men and 4 women were charged in Project Troubadour, Halton police said Tuesday. The accused rapper, Christian Collins, 31 of Milton, who performs as Ba Crook, Killa da Crook, and Cam, and Omar Brooks, 40 of Burlington, whose rapper name is Sif. Police gave few details of the 12 alleged victims, but did say they ranged in age from 18 to mid-30s. The woman who originally came forward had been trafficked for 15 years, police said. Some had been conned into believing that they were in caring relationships as their bodies were sold, police added. The 12-month multi-jurisdictional investigation, dubbed Project Troubadour, has resulted in 85 criminal charges so far, and police say they expect more to come. Unfortunately, we believe the 12 victims is just the tip of the iceberg in this case, Superintendent Dave Constantini said. He praised the original female complainant as strong and brave. Her complaint mushroomed into a joint forces probe in which investigators allege that the parties used coercion, deception, manipulation, and psychological harm to maintain control, direction, or influence over the victims. The probe included raids on July 13th when police say they seized numerous luxury items, including a Lamborghini Urus, Mercedes-Benz S550, Mercedes-Benz AMG GT, 2 Sea-Doos, and an estimated $450,000 in high-end jewelry. Also seized was a quantity of drugs, including cocaine, cannabis, oxycodone, and psilocybin, approximately $30,000 in Canadian and U.S. currency, and electronic devices, police say. Behind every human trafficking investigation is a survivor whose trust and freedom and dignity have been taken from them, Constantini said. These individuals are not responsible for the circumstances they have endured, and they are survivors of exploitation who deserve compassion, support, and the opportunity to rebuild their lives. Our priority is not only to hold traffickers accountable, but to ensure survivors know they are not alone and that our service, together with our community partners, is committed to helping them find safety, support, and hope. Among the charges laid are trafficking in persons, procuring illicit sexual intercourse, procure to become a prostitute, and living off the avails of prostitution. Charged with trafficking-related offenses are Collins, Brooks, Michelle DeMarco, 33 of Burlington, alias Coco and Ivy Love, Nicholas Bennett, 32 of Mississauga, alias D-Boy Bennett and Benz, Merlin Brooks, 74 of Burlington, Melinda Brooks, 45 of Burlington, Melisha Brooks, 45 of Burlington, Jonathan Green, 40 of Toronto, Jadis Brooks Reynolds, 26 of Mississauga, also known as J. Rip Severe. Halton police said Tuesday they have charged 5 men and 4 women as Project Troubadour, a 10-month jurisdictional investigation that has resulted in 85 criminal charges so far. She is also known as Drippy and JD. All of the accused are being held in custody, pending their respective bail hearings in Milton. Human trafficking is one of the most serious and disturbing crimes we investigate, Deputy Jeff Hill said in a prepared statement. It exploits vulnerable individuals for profit, fuels organized crime, and leaves lasting physical and psychological harm that extends far behind the survivors themselves, Hill said. This is not a crime that exists in isolation. It affects the safety, security, and well-being of our entire community. Investigators say they believe there may be additional victims. This is Collins' second clash with the law in less than a year. Last October, Collins was acquitted of being part of a gang that made off with 150 watches, mainly Rolexes, valued at $6.5 million and $250,000 in cash from a luxury watch dealer in Spadina Avenue on October 30th, 2023. The robbery was captured on surveillance cameras. Collins denied he was a robber caught in surveillance footage. The Crown is appealing his acquittal. Correction. A July 19th opinion article about the opposition leader's residence incorrectly said Crown Princess Juliana of the Netherlands gave birth to her third child at Stornoway in 1943 when the Dutch royal family took refuge in Ottawa to escape Nazi occupation. In fact, the family lived at the house, then a private residence, from 1941 to 1945, but the third child, Princess Margaret, was born at the Ottawa Civic Hospital. As well, 14% of emergency shelter users experience homelessness for more than 6 months, not 14% of the Canadian population. Festival tickets proved a hard sell. Toronto sold less than half the tickets to its marquee World Cup 2026 watch party, according to newly released figures. A sales slump that could deal a revenue hit to an event that was already facing a $5 million shortfall. Soccer fans bought only about 44% of available premium tickets to fan festivals staged at Fort York and the Bentway during the tournament, the municipality said in a statement Tuesday. Despite most of the tickets going unsold, Sharon Ballenbeck, executive director of the city's World Cup Secretariat, maintained that attendance at the festival had been strong. She said a total of more than 350,000 people took part, a figure that appears to include both free, general admission, and ticketed access. The festival was primarily a free public event, with premium ticket sales serving as one component of the overall fan experience and financial plan, Ballenbeck said, noting that attendance varied based on weather, match schedules, and popularity of the teams playing, and that the city accounted for those variables in its planning. The fan festival was held on 24 days of the World Cup, which ran from June 11th to July 19th, and featured 6 games in Toronto, in addition to broadcasting live matches. The party featured food vendors and performances from artists such as the Sheepdogs, Angine de Pontrine, and a group of DJS artists curated by Cardinal Official. While general admission was free, the city sold premium tickets that guaranteed fast-tracked entry, elevated concession options, and exclusive access to sections of the festival grounds. There were 3,300 premium spots available for each day of the festival at 3 price tiers. Tickets for the Garden Pavilion were set at $100, while the Pitchside Terrace cost $150, and the Casamigos Clubhouse, which boasted a private double-decker climate-controlled lounge, went for $300. The prices didn't include taxes and fees or the cost of food and drinks. The city repeatedly denies requests to share fan festival sales data during and after the World Cup, saying a detailed analysis would be released later. Its statement said about the 44% sales rate comes a day after Global News reported on preliminary premium ticket data it obtained through a Freedom of Information request. The Star subsequently obtained the same data. Those numbers reflect a lower sale rate because they were compiled by city staff on July 14th, before the end of the tournament, when some tickets remained for remaining dates of festival were still up for grabs. The figures don't also include tickets for the watch party the day of the World Cup final on July 19th, which Ballenbeck said was sold out. While the data is preliminary, it provides a detailed breakdown of ticket sales for most days of the festival. It shows that the edition for Canada's first game against Bosnia-Herzegovina on June 12th was close to a sellout, and the edition for Croatia versus Portugal knockout match on July 2nd was also popular, but for a majority of the 24 editions, the number of tickets sold for premium zones was less than 50%. On July 12th, when the city added an extra festival day for the Spain versus Belgium quarterfinal, just 7% of the tickets were sold. The city was hoping to generate $3 million from premium ticket sales to help offset the $25 million cost of the watch party. How close the city got to their target is not clear. Ballenbeck said that the 44% sale rate created about $5 million in gross revenue. However, it is likely not all that went to the city. A planning document obtained by the Star shows the vendor group the city contracted to stage the festival could get a significant cut of premium ticket revenue, 60 or 70%, depending on the ticket category. On Tuesday, the city didn't confirm the revenue split or say how much money from gross sales ended up in city coffers. However, Ballenbeck noted that ticket sales weren't the primary source of revenue for Toronto's $380 million World Cup hosting budget, which is being funded through reserve funds, a temporary increase to the hotel tax, contributions from other levels of government, and other sources. While a full analysis isn't expected until early 2027, current forecasts indicate the city stayed within that council-approved spending envelope, according to Ballenbeck. A preliminary report on Toronto's World Cup is expected to go to council this week. Hosted by 16 cities in the U.S., Mexico, and Canada, holding a fan festival was a key part of the original agreement signed with FIFA. In December, Toronto awarded a sole source $16 million contract to the vendor group consisting of the Fifth Social Club, DBA Rendezvous with Candace and Allison Inc., and 128 Inc., Loft Entertainment Inc., and Paquin Entertainment Group to stage the festival. Just 4 months later, staff reported that the companies required $9 million more to improve the fan experience and bolster safety and security. In order to help pay the cost, staff proposed charging $10 for general admission, but were forced to scrap the idea after public backlash. The event had been previously pitched as a no-charge way for residents who couldn't afford expensive match tickets to take part in the World Cup. The loss of projected revenue from general admission sales left a $5 million gap in the festival budget, which as of this week, the city had yet to say how it would make up. Council Josh Matlow, Toronto, St. Paul's, said the city's handling of the fan festival warrants further scrutiny. He argued that because Toronto agreed to host the World Cup without securing funding from other levels of government, staff were left scrambling to find revenue sources, and proposals like the surprise move to charge for general admission set off big alarm bells. There are some significant questions about how FanFest was managed and some of the choices that were made, said Matlow. He's urging the city auditor general to conduct a value for money audit of the games. Organizer vows to continue despite losing key sponsor. The organizer of Salsa on St. Clair vows to continue with the popular street festival even though a major backer has ended his sponsorship in the wake of a deadly shooting this month. The local village, Hillcrest Village Improvement Area, voted last Thursday to discontinue its sponsorship of the festival that has run for 21 years, according to a letter obtained by the Toronto Star sent to Canadian Salsa Festivals and TLN Media Group, the St. Clair Festival organizers. We have been proud sponsor and host this event for many years, the letter said, signed by Heather Hanna, the BIA chair. However, the board believes the festival has outgrown both the neighborhood and the capacity of our BIA. The BIA's move follows the shooting on July 11th that left 2 people dead and 5 injured. Police have yet to make an arrest or even release details on possible suspects. Hanna's letter pointed to surveys done among its membership of local businesses over the past few years that have showed a significant decline in support for the festival. Restaurants and businesses have gone so far as to choose not to open during the event, the letter continued. Support among local residents has also declined markedly. The letter gives no further details, and Hanna declined to comment. In an emailed statement Tuesday, shortly after the Star broke the news of the BIA's decision, TLN President Aldo De Feliz wrote, "The invasion of the festival by reckless criminals on July 11, 2026 resulted in horrific scenes of violence, chaos, and lasting trauma. It comes as no surprise, therefore, that the BIA salespeople would so respond in the wake of such a tragedy." De Feliz's statement said TLN has since met with Mayor Olivia Chow's office to ensure continuation of the festival. Chow's office confirmed Tuesday that the mayor assured the organizers that the city can work with them to make sure Torontonians can continue to enjoy the festival next year. Shortly after the shooting, De Feliz told the Globe and Mail in an email that there had been a declining police presence at the festival, pointing to the city's increasing indifference and declining support for safety measures. A few days later, he threatened in an online statement to withdraw support for the festival if the city didn't ramp up its policing. However, the Toronto Police said in a statement that the number of officers at the festival were consistent with the previous years, including a command post. Withdrawing support for a street festival is a rare move for the BIA, said John Kiru, Executive Director of the Toronto Association of Business Improvement Areas, especially for long-standing events, so when it does happen, there must be a compelling reason. It's either because the event has become too expensive, the BIA doesn't see the return on its investment, or enough businesses have raised concerns, he said. Organizers can relocate or apply for permits to hold the festival in the same location, but City Council ultimately has the say, Kiru said. Local Council Josh Matlow, Toronto St. Paul's, said the festival is unlikely to return to St. Clair West since the BIA has made it very clear where it stands. We will focus on other ways to support our merchants and celebrate our Latin American community, said Matlow. Khalid Lashin, a regular salsa festival goer and dancer, said he's relieved the festival may return because it is his vacation away from home and the happy atmosphere during the day can be contagious. I'm very sad and worried this might not be the case next year, he said, questioning whether a new location or increased security would take away that feeling. But I understand the inconvenience for people living and working there, Lashin added. Vito Tomasiccio, co-owner of Noto Restaurant, which is part of the BIA, said, "Parting with the festival is the right call for the neighborhood. I've been there for 12 years, so I've seen the festival grow, and I've seen it change after COVID. After 6 o'clock, the customer base definitely gets younger, a little bit more aggressive, and there's more circles of groups and less people dancing. There are police stationed every year, but the problem is you're dealing with some brazen people. How do you manage overconsumption and overaggression?" said Tomasiccio. Tomasiccio said his restaurant stays open and tries to make the best out of it, but he also noted some potential downsides for other local businesses that choose to close during the event. Someone could go to the LCBO and get themselves a cooler. Then I got to deal with the crap that potentially comes into my venue, and I can't make sales. What's the point of opening? Shooting targets armored car firm. Toronto police are investigating after shots were fired at the global headquarters of Incus, a company that makes armored vehicles in North York, early Tuesday. Officers responded to reports of gunshots heard in the area of Finch Avenue West and Weston Road shortly before 2 a.m., they said on social media about 4 hours later. No injuries were reported, but the business was damaged, and police found evidence of gunfire. Investigators did not have a suspect description, they said. The incident took place at Incus, a facility located on Weston Road near Fenmar Drive. An employee who answered the phone at Incus head office declined to comment, saying they were still gathering more information, but they confirmed that no workers were injured. In a statement posted online, the company's chief security officer, Andy Ellis, said that Incus remains fully operational and focused on its mission following the shooting. The incident follows 3 other overnight shootings in the city. Early on Sunday morning, evidence of gunfire was found at 2 locations of the same Jewish-owned bakery, Kiva's, in Toronto. 1 day later, the area near the U.S. consulate in downtown Toronto came under fire for the second time in 4 months. Investigators are looking into whether there are any connections between these incidents, Toronto Police spokesperson Stephanie Sayer said. The Incus production facility in North York is one of 2 in the world. The other is in Lagos, Nigeria. The company claims to be the leading armored vehicle manufacturer in North America, shipping products across the globe for 30 years. However, its website says elsewhere that the company was established in 2000. The Toronto headquarters of Incus was previously the site of a protest in 2023 that resulted in 5 arrests for trespassing. The organizing group, World Beyond War, said in a statement that the protest was demanding that the government of Canada end arms exports to Israel immediately. Incus provides armored vehicles for banks, law enforcement agencies, corporate clients, and individuals worldwide. Ottawa expands online passport renewal. Ottawa Immigration Minister Lena Diab says that the online passport renewal is now open to all eligible Canadian adults. To qualify, applicants must have an address in Canada, be older than 16 when they got their last passport, and must have received it within the last 15 years, among other criteria. Applicants will still need to get a passport photo taken by a commercial photographer and submit a digital copy when applying online. Online passport renewals have been an option for some passport holders for a few years, but the most recent version of the service had a daily cap of 2,000 applications. Diab says people who apply online should expect to receive their new passports within 20 days and be able to track its progress in real time. The minister announced earlier this year that applicants' passport application fees will be reimbursed if they wait more than 30 days to get their travel documents. Face passport fraud charges. 2 Ontario residents face charges after a Competition Bureau probe found that they allegedly misled Canadians into thinking they were dealing directly with the federal government's passport service. York Regional Police charged John Jesse Breslin and Phoebe Hui Ting Wang last week with fraud, over $5,000, and possessing proceeds of a crime. A release from the Competition Bureau says the 2 operated a business under the names Passport Online and Passport Express that allegedly used misleading ads to suggest customers could easily obtain or renew passport online using their services. It's a race against time after powerful quake. Japanese Prime Minister Sanae Takachi said 13 people have been found dead after a powerful quake shook part of southwestern Japan, and rescue work was continuing Wednesday for the missing. A magnitude 7.1 earthquake struck the Kumamoto area on the southern main island of Kyushu Tuesday afternoon. Those people who are still waiting to be rescued, and it's a race against time, Takashi said. We will go all out to find and rescue as many people as we can. Takuchi offered her condolences to the victim and sympathy to their relatives, while urging those affected by the quake to take care of themselves under the hot weather. Japan's self-defense forces joined rescue workers in the search and rescue operations at a badly damaged shopping mall and were delivering water, food, and other necessities to the hard-hit areas, she said. The quake collapsed the second floor of the AN Mall in Kashima Town, trapping people, according to the fire department in the capital of Kumamoto. A chimney collapsed at the Nippon Paper Industries Company factory, trapping people under the debris, the Kumamoto emergency team said. The affected area is about 900 kilometers southwest of Tokyo. The Fire and Disaster Management Agency said major public facilities or infrastructure were not damaged, and the nuclear regulatory said no abnormalities were found at 3 nearby nuclear plants. Kyodo News said a hospital in Yatsushiro took in about 40 people, and about 50 others were taken to a hospital in Kumamoto City. Many manufacturers in Kyushu expected operations Tuesday but found no major damage and planned to resume work on Wednesday. The runway at Isakumoto Airport was also closed, with no immediate word on when it resumed operations. The shaked reminded me of Kumamoto quake 10 years ago, and I was frightened, said Hiroki Shimoda, an official at the Mifune Town Hall, who saw roof tiles crash to the ground. Kumamoto was hit with a deadly quake in 2016 that killed at least 50 people. You've been listening to a reading of articles and features from the July 29, 2026 issue of the Toronto Star. Your reader has been Doug. Thank you for listening.